Oh my God.
Now I'm
Welcome back to
punchy.
the show. We're talking about nudist colonies, but that's all right.
And for our watchers, we were talking about how much easier it would be every time you had to move if you were a nudist, because you wouldn't have as much clothing to move. To
Right.
dovetail on our earlier podcasts of the stress of moving and
Yes.
what's important in your life and so on.
Yes.
Just so you know, we're not completely off the wall talking about living nude. But for those of you that do live nude, do tell us how it goes, and it's probably a lot easier to move.
Yeah. And like we're talking about like the body positivity piece.
Yeah.
Because I feel like covering my body is a public service. So which really dovetails nicely probably into our self-talk situation that
Yeah.
we were
Well, when you say that, we could joke about it, right? So, like my
yeah,
wife and
it's funny.
I, you probably do this with your husband. There are jokes that we tell only in our house
Oh yeah.
because they're
Oh,
so
that's a home
terrible,
only. Yeah, they're a
right?
home
And
only
then,
thing.
yeah,
Mm-mm.
and you should be able to be in your own home and make it like I would never do that in public. But I tell people that because it sort of normalizes, you're going to have thoughts in your head about yourself and other people that aren't savory and are totally on PC and everything else. And it's okay. Just because it arrives in your brain and then in this person you trust most in the world, you share that with, it's okay, right? Um, the immediacy to come in and self-judge or talk with something negative, like, oh, I shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
It's more complex than that. So can you sort of look at what you said and be gentle with yourself? And sometimes maybe a little bit of self criticalness is okay to sort of keep the reins in when you're out in public or something
Mm,
like that.
mm.
But I find, especially for people that have complex trauma or are neurodivergent in any way, the self talk is always the really well developed parts of self are negative, right?
Yeah.
The Russian, I can remember talking to my own therapist about like if I drop something and she says, "What do you say to yourself?" And I close my eyes and try to remember. I'm like, "Oh, it's always you idiot," or "That was stupid." And at first she's like, "Well, that's really negative self-talk." And I'm like, "No, I don't really feel that way." But I started to really think about the words. And I was like, who have I heard this from? Oh, like my parents, like, slow down, you're clumsy, just you're not trying hard enough, you're not doing it the right way. Or getting looks from peers growing up neurodivergent, especially when you don't know you are. You just always
Yeah.
feel like you're the dorky kid. And that sense of we do what we've learned, right? And that's not separate from your internal world. So like when someone says to me they don't feel good about their body, regardless of what someone on the outside might say about their body, it's important to validate that. And instead of saying, well, that's not funny, or that's you have an eating disorder, or whatever it is, my judgment on there. Now I'm no longer seeing my client, it's my judgment. And how much of that do you do internally with yourself that's so automatic you don't even think about it, right? It just
Yeah.
happens. And
Yeah.
if you even just spend a day paying attention to that voice, instead of saying, oh, and then being down on yourself because you're so critical to yourself, but just notice those little nuances of things that you say to yourself. And I'm not saying, go the other way and be Pollyanna and everything's wonderful and great and you forgive yourself for everything. It's just more about how you rush in and negatively evaluate something and that you're not giving yourself the benefit of the doubt or like an empathy piece. I dropped 6 different things this morning already because I didn't sleep well last night. And instead of saying to myself, what the hell's wrong with you? I'm like, oh, that's how the day is going to go. Kind of in a funny way, like, oh yeah, okay. I'm going to drop stuff because I'm super tired. And okay, that's the way the day is going to go. So, and in a way, making a joke about it is more kind to myself than, oh, for God's sakes, you just didn't sleep. Just stop dropping stuff. That's not going to help, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you do that? And there's that shame spiral that we've talked about in other episodes that you can get into. And then you're flogging yourself before the other person even has a chance to do that. And why do we do that? A, it's what we've learned. B, it's familiar. It's not comfortable, but it's familiar. And C, we haven't had a replacement for it. We haven't learned to do it in another way unless you start practicing that, right?
Yeah.
In my therapy, my therapist said, ask other people what they might say. That was the starting point, at least. What would they
Yeah.
say? Or I've said to other people, and I had this too, if you imagine your inner child like yourself as a 6-year-old, would you say that to that
Yeah.
6-year-old? And usually they're
Yeah.
like, no, that's terrible. Why are you doing it to yourself? Right? The effect that has, and that really paints a picture of how mean you might be being to yourself, right? To
Yeah.
sort of collude with that. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of times when we like do like when I'm doing an archaeological dig with this,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because like a lot of it's really kind of a deep fossilized kind of
Right?
thing. Like a
Yeah.
lot of
Yeah.
times, it's what purpose does it serve for you today? Like what purpose is
Yeah.
this? And I think for some of my clients, it's if I don't speak harshly to myself, I won't do what's right. I
Yeah.
won't do my best. I
Yeah. Exactly.
won't whatever. And it's like
Somehow lose
there's
motivation. I have to drive myself.
yeah,
Yeah.
like I'll like fall off the face of the earth because I
Yeah.
will not get off the couch or
Yeah.
whatever this is. And it's like, is that's clearly a reflection or a narrative that was written in the chapters very early,
Yeah.
what would you do? What would you say to a child or what would you say like externally to yourself? What would you
Right.
say to get them through that moment?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's never you
You idiot.
stupid idiot.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
why
Right. Right.
like, can't you,
Yeah. Why would you do that?
um,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I see this a lot in the community, just with me being a community person, walking
Sure.
around and listening to this. I actually, it's funny, like and I don't mean to be overgeneralized here. It's just that I have this experience the most often as a pattern when I visit
Hmm.
Walt Disney World. When I go to Florida,
Oh,
so
wow.
we love
Disney.
going to
Yeah.
Disneylands.
Yep.
We don't even like the merch necessarily, but we like visiting the parks.
Yeah.
Like this is something
Yeah.
that we love to do. We visit and have a snack and
Yeah.
maybe grab a ride or like whatever.
You're so
So
close. You can do that. Yeah.
yes, yes, yes. And I think here in Southern California, the Disneyland is really a locals kind of park. But well,
Oh,
when we go
okay.
to Florida
Yeah.
and we're at Disney World, I find myself getting or reacting is what I should
Oh.
say to what I'm hearing and seeing in
Oh,
the parenting
wow.
styles of
Uh-huh.
parents and their children.
Mm.
And I'm not even saying they're from Florida. I'm just saying I see it the
Yeah.
most when I go there. But it's a lot of, threats. If you don't shape up, if you don't
Mm.
listen, you better get it together or we're leaving.
Yeah.
And it's like, first of all, you have a family of 5, you're at Disney World, you spent $1,200 to be here, you're not going nowhere.
No. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
everybody knows that. But like
Mm.
your kids know that. Your
Yeah.
kids know,
Right.
right?
Right.
And it's this idea of just there's the narrative. Like
Yeah.
that's the voice. And
Yes.
I grew up with a lot of threats as well. And that was probably more cultural more than
Mhm.
anything and generational more than
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but I just have a very critical voice
Hmm.
in my mind.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so overriding it, replacing it, and I have to replace it. Like I can't just be like, stop doing that. I have to
You have to
replace it
replace. Yeah. Yeah.
with something else, just
Hmm.
like finding the balance of being on top of the news right now is very
Hmm.
distressing, but I
Oh,
don't
yeah.
want to be
Yeah.
completely disconnected.
Yeah.
So I just found myself like, well, I can't like not stop doing that, Gwen. Like that
Oh,
doesn't
yeah,
work.
it's too hard. Yeah, yeah. You have to replace it with something else. Like, I'll
Right.
go just look at the headlines and not read any of the full stories or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, like I'm like go like read a book or like I
Yeah.
tried micro learning, which is this
Mm.
kind of fun thing where it's like giving you like you learn about something in these like 2-minute chunks.
Oh, uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And that's been really nice. So instead of
Oh,
like
good.
going to the news, I'm going there instead.
Oh,
And
gotcha, gotcha.
that's been great too.
Yeah, yeah,
But this idea of like, you can't just say stop doing that. Like
right.
you got to replace it. Like sometimes
Yeah,
people don't even know what words to
yeah,
use to nurture themselves through
yeah,
something.
yeah.
Like, what do I
Yeah,
say to
I
myself,
have
you
a
know?
student in a class I'm teaching now who is ADHD, and I've had them in tons of other classes. And the fact that they ask a lot of questions and talk a lot, I actually like, because it, it flushes out the learning, and no one else is saying anything. So great, go for it.
Mhm.
And then the group class I'm teaching now, they even said, I know I talk too much. And I said, so let's look at the words for that. I talk too much. How about I talk a lot? Because what is the difference? The other students are like, well, it sounds like the same thing. I'm no. So talk too much is a judgment, a negative thing. I talk a lot is more of a why. Why do you talk a lot? And that had to do with being ADHD
Mhm.
and spending most of that upbringing time being told not to do that. And
Mm.
so, how do I do that now? And now I know it's irritating other people now. And then we could go to a place of, okay, so let's just have you notice that. And then maybe what could happen is you're not leaving room for anybody else to say anything, which is bordering on shaming. It's a delicate balance. So let's have you be aware of when you're holding something back, and like maybe only say something every third time, or but just to play with it. Not like you have to do that in forever, but just to see what you notice. And so they were game to do that. And what they noticed was more people jumped in and said some things. And then even if someone said something else, losing track of their own thought was fine. Didn't end up being, oh, I had this really juicy thing I wanted to talk about, and now I lost it. It was more like, oh, it must not have been that important. I didn't have to say that out loud. So, but I thought about that a lot, and how to talk about that style person. It tends to be neurodivergent, and how do you give an internalized script so it's not shaming? And word choice is important. How you go about it is important. If you truly have curiosity to know the whys,
Yeah.
it'll go better, right? So
Yeah.
instead of, well, why don't you just stop, looking at the news? And you're like,
Right.
I have
Knock
to
it
replace it with
off.
something. Yeah, you'd say, you feel like it's an empty hole and I have to fill it with something. Okay, well, what would be something you would want to fill it with then? Rather than just saying, like you say, you hear the parents say, well, if you don't behave, then we're leaving.
Yeah.
That is just a threat. And you're telling these little kids who are probably totally overstimulated in a place like Disney World and tired and it's hot and they haven't eaten their regular food and this kind of thing. And now you're threatening them on top of that. You're just teaching them to not pay attention to their bodies, to not say anything, to not act out, and to talk to themselves negatively instead of saying or doing anything, right?
Yeah, and
It's a complete loss. You can't win any way you move there.
I think that's also it also does not acknowledge the parents' responsibility in that moment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's like when we look at these types of relationships as completely vertical, I am your
Yeah.
parent, I am superior, what I
Yeah.
say
Yeah. Oh,
goes,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
you are inferior and you listen to
Mm-hmm.
me, and what you think or want
Mm-hmm.
is not relevant, right?
Yeah, versus, oh, I know you're tired. I'll carry you for a while, or do you need to take a break, or do you
Right.
want, we can leave, go back to the hotel for a while, or whatever it is. Then you're teaching that kid to voice their internal states,
And
and then figure out
regulate.
how to meet, and yeah, regulate, figure out how to meet their needs. Yeah,
Right. And I think as a parent, it's like my responsibility, like, what is my role? And then what is
yeah,
your role? Like,
yeah,
kids
yeah, yeah.
have their roles and their jobs, and
Mhm.
I have my role and my job as a parent.
There you go.
And I
Yeah.
think when we see things in that more horizontal kind of way,
Hmm.
um, then we can allow the space for kids and allow the space for parents, but
Hmm.
then parents can also feel empowered, right? Because
Yeah,
clearly
yeah,
everyone's grumpy.
yeah.
It's Florida in the middle of the
Hmm.
summer. It's 100% humidity at 100 degrees. Like it's
Yeah,
crazy. Like
yeah,
it's
yeah,
all like
yeah.
I'm exaggerating.
It's a recipe for crabbiness, really. Yeah,
Right, right. And like again, I'm probably exaggerating with humidity and heat, but not by
yeah,
much. Like
yeah, not by
really
much.
not by much.
Yeah.
Um and we're tired, and you're right. We're
Mm-hmm.
not in our routines, and we are overstimulated. And even though we're in a fun place that everyone wants
Mm-hmm.
to be at, that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't change the fact that I'm irritable and cranky because I'm tired and I'm
Yeah. Yeah.
hungry and
Yeah.
I'm thirsty. And honestly, I
Yeah.
need a break. Like I
Yeah.
need
Right.
a break.
Yeah.
And I get it. You're spending $1,200 to be there. You've got there at rope drop, right?
Yep.
7 a.m., 8
Oh
a.m.,
God.
whatever.
Yeah.
And you aren't going to leave until that park closes because you're going to
Yeah.
get your
Till
money's
10
worth.
o'clock.
Like,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I get all of those pieces and the stress of like how expensive it is and the money.
Yep.
Like it's a it's a lot to
Yeah.
juggle. But
Mm-hmm.
I think what we say to ourselves though, if we can analyze the narrative and replace it,
Yeah.
and for me, it's always like, what would you say to a child that you
Mm-hmm.
really
Mm-hmm.
deeply loved and cared about?
Yeah.
What would
Yeah.
you say to them during this time?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what you say to yourself.
And those are those what we call internal family systems. So you have like your inner child, you can have your inner critic, your
Yeah.
inner, type
Yeah.
A worker, whatever that is,
Yeah.
and create those dialogues internally. So you can do that. You need to be able to visualize it. At least that was the case for me. Like you just said, what would you say to your little 6-year-old? Oh my God, I'd
Yeah.
never say that.
Yeah.
I'd pick her up and say, yeah, clearly we need to get into some air conditioning and just sit down for a while,
Clearly,
Yeah.
we need a cold beverage and a
Yeah.
treat.
Yeah.
Clear,
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
clearly,
Yeah. Yeah.
clearly, we need to
Right.
go shopping. I don't know.
Yeah.
We need to get into an air conditioned
Yeah.
place and like take a
Can you
look at
please
something.
buy me that Pooh Bear in the
Oh,
safari outfit with the pith helmets? So cute.
Dana, if you want that, the next time I go, I will find that
No,
for
I've
you.
had it. I've had
Oh,
it.
good.
I've had it in my life, and then I've let him go. Yeah.
Do you know all I wanted when I was little, and I went to Disneyland a handful of times when I was a child because I lived in Canada, so
Oh
we
yeah,
would
yeah,
come
yeah.
visit our relatives here, and whenever we come to
Mhm.
visit our relatives, we go to Disneyland, and we never bought food in the park. It was so expensive.
Oh
Even
yeah,
then,
yeah.
we would always like bring food and picnic on the outside because at that time you
Mhm.
couldn't bring outside food to into
Oh,
Disneyland. But I remember as a little girl, all I wanted was a balloon.
Oh,
I wanted the Mickey head
with
balloon.
the ears.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
that like inevitably by the end of the day deflated, like one of the
yeah,
ears like deflated.
yeah, yep.
I really wanted that balloon. I never got it.
I
I
wanted
wanted a
the
pink
hat and
one.
never got it. Yeah. See, we
Oh,
have trauma from
yeah.
parents just saying no, no, absolutely not. Yeah,
Yeah.
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 So,
It's interesting. Like, and again, like for you and I, it's like that's just a tip of the iceberg.
yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah.
not that's clearly not like where our trauma comes from. It's just the cumulative aspect of we're not saying that Dana not getting her Pooh Bear and me not getting my balloon is what led
Yeah,
to us to be the outstanding people that we
right,
are today.
right. Yeah, right.
But
I did buy that Pooh Bear in Disney World many years later, and
yeah, I bought a balloon for myself too.
oh, good, good. Okay,
Oh
yeah,
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 for
yeah,
sure. Like you kind of realize those things.
yeah.
I also got a Cabbage Patch Kid like 5 years after they were
Oh yeah.
um hot. Like
You could
they
actually
had like
find
ended
them.
up at Pick and Save by that time or like whatever it
Yeah, yeah,
was, and I didn't want one.
yeah.
I didn't want one then. I didn't
Uh-huh.
want one 5 years after
Yeah.
they were hot. Like I wanted one when everyone was getting a Cabbage Patch Kid, clearly.
Oh
Not like
yes,
5
yes, I see
years
what
and
you.
I'm
Yeah,
like now
yeah,
a preteen and I'm like, what the hell
yeah.
am I gonna do with
I
this
had that happen. Something
Cabbage
I
Patch Kid?
desperately wanted for Christmas, and they didn't get it, and they finally got it like 6 years later. And I'm like, this is like a kid's toy. Why are you
Yeah, I
buying me
don't want
this
it
now?
anymore.
And it was just that the disconnect, and
Yeah.
that I can't overemphasize enough the critical voices that you internalize and how much you're keeping that narrative going unless you actively try to combat it.
You
Yeah.
have to it's automatic. It's
Mhm.
reflexive almost. And
Mhm,
it's
mhm.
reflexive and undercover because it's
Yeah.
happening internally.
Yep.
No one else can see it but you.
Yep.
And
Exactly.
so a good way to make a pause is again, irritability is coming back up here. And I
Mhm,
think
mhm.
irritability is a really good sign.
Yeah.
And for us, like when I see a lot of irritability, I mean, that's a depressive trait.
Yeah. Or
Or
just said
especially in
in the
children.
situation, something you're overloaded. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, especially in
Exactly.
kids. Like if I'm seeing a lot of irritability and agitation over and
Mhm.
over and over again, like, I'm like, we need to kind of be looking at something a little bit bigger than what's
Yeah.
happening. And clearly
Yeah.
we're
Like
back to
what's going
family
on in the
systems
system.
and
Yeah, exactly.
things like
Yeah.
that. But yeah, like if you do have irritability or agitation, especially with yourself,
Mm-hmm.
what are you
Yeah.
saying to yourself? And how
Mm-hmm.
can you find a replacement
Yeah. Yeah.
for that self-talk?
Yeah. And sometimes, like doing with my carpentry and woodworking, if I was sure I was cutting something the right way and then I cut it
Mhm.
wrong, initially would hear, oh, you're not careful enough. You always screw it up. To like, here's my chance to do it differently. It's okay. I can redo this. It's
Yeah.
okay. Right. So
Yeah.
look for those moments and find ways to give that to yourself. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. All right. All right, everyone. Well, be good to you and be good to others. And we will catch you in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.